Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story. The demonic beast turns into a cute girl. Gospel 1, Demonic Descent, written by Koji. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin. Maple was playing the game with her friends, taking down a rare monster that they forced to spawn by using an item. That monster was defeated successfully when suddenly the players who were watching her guild started pointing out a weird portal. That looks like it could lead somewhere fun, Maple said, clapping her currently large hands together as she was still in her atrocity form. However, when she took a step toward it, she was hit with a water ball from behind from her friend Sally. "Maple, you do not dare to touch that weird thing," Sally shouted as she gave her a hard stare. She was used to her friend doing odd things, but that swirling portal was definitely a no-go as far as she was concerned. "Oh, come on, Sally, I am not that reckless," Maple said, waving her hands before slipping on a puddle left by her friend's earlier water attack. When she felt her body feel light all of a sudden and glow. Well, at least she tried to avoid touching it right. Then everything went dark and she blacked out. All she could recall for the brief moments she woke up for that she had fought someone. Mustafu, third-person POV. One moment Mustafu was a peaceful city filled with nothing but the sounds of walking pedestrians and cars driving by on their way home or going to work. In the next moment, however, a large creature rose up from a group of supposedly abandoned buildings. In truth, it was an illegal quirk lab that had been buying trafficked people to experiment on that the police had discovered a month prior. Many of the top 10 heroes were gathered for this mission, however they did not expect anything to happen till they attacked. As such, when the beast appeared that would later be known as the Rose Demon to Japan and the rest of the world due to the news, they were all caught off guard. It had 4 muscular scaly arms with spiky elbows which had an ability to regenerate after one of them are sliced. All of them had noticed this as a large amount of metal beams fell on an elbow joint, tearing through it as the creature forced its way through. Its skin was a deep black, it had 4 clawed fingers with red palms, and red leaf-like hair on its back. On top of that, it had armored plates on the head that seemed to have protected it from crashing through the building. It also had a tail, a cyan tongue within its mouth, its chest has a redesigned flower, its legs are spiky and its face is grotesque. As for lack of a more accurate word, it was alien-like. The heroes with all might from the top 10 were the rank 2 Endeavor with his powerful flame quirk. Then came rank 6 Mirko with her strength quirk that even he did not easily handle fighting one-on-one. Followed by rank 8 Yoroi Musha, also known as the samurai hero due to his armor. He also possessed a strength quirk to rival Mirko but has become weaker than her due to the age gap between them. For the next was the rank 9 Ryukyu with her powerful dragon quirk, watching the skies for us during the assault. Finally, for backup in case some escaped them, was rank 5 Edge Shot with his stealth quirk to help sneak up on them. And, I would just like to make it clear that I could not find anything specific about the rank 8 hero, so I had to fill in some blanks for the story. Also, I know her rank was unknown before, but I think people would like it more to immediately make Mirko the rank 6 immediately instead of some random guy. The creature appeared to be starting to move on to other buildings as it dug itself out of the rubble. This was when they noticed it sniffing the air and turning towards the civilians. Fortunately, it took its time, so the civilians managed to all be evacuated before any major injuries could occur. Endeavor began hitting it with his flames, but the beast was unfazed, responding with a more powerful blue flame, driving the hero back. As much as the flame hero hated to admit it, even his flames were no match to its in terms of raw power. Detroit Smash. All Might had called out as he leapt at it, however it managed to just barely push back his attack and began healing itself. Mirko, Samurai, and Ryukyu all attacked as well, with similar results before it started moving past them. The creature crushed entire buildings whenever it stomped on them, as it seemed to have reached its full size. They continued to fight it, but to no avail. All they had managed to do was stall for time when All Might decided it was all or nothing. Touring on the radio, he called out to the other heroes to let them know of his plan. "We need to concentrate our attacks on one spot," All Might said over to the others, hoping this plan would work. "Which spot do I need to kick then?" Mirko shouted in response to him, deciding to leave the complex planning up to them while she did what she does best. I see some sort of rose-shaped marking on its chest, it may be hiding a scar or old injury. Samurai said, giving the rest of his juniors some sound advice. In that case I will distract it with my fire while you four aim your attacks. Endeavor said as he began firing his flames at it again, knowing he would only PSS it off. All right, time to do this. Ryukyu said, getting back into the air for her attack. As they all went for the injury once they were sure Endeavor had its attention. Which was unfortunately after it swung its tail at him, crushing several buildings at once, just barely missing him as he dodged in time. California Smash. All Might shouted as he attacks with a frontal somersault to build up momentum and air pressure, which is then released in a smash at the weak spot. Luna Arc, Mirko shouted as she raises her leg and delivers a powerful front-facing axe kick on to her opponent weak spot. Stone Smashing Slash. Samurai shouted as he struck with the flat side of his blade, that had an extra coating of a certain metal. This metal caused intense shock waves that, combined with his strength quirk, could turn entire boulders to piles of dust. Scale Piercing Move. Ryukyu shouted as she did a somersault similar to All Might, straightening her body at the last second using her tail like a spear. And, for Ryukyu and Samurai, I just invented super moves for them as they did not have any I could find, so if anyone has an issue with this then blame the original creator of My Hero Academia, not me. With their combined attacks they were able to strike a significant blow, piercing its skin. It began to fall back, it let out one final roar before passing out. However, it slowly began to shrink, turning into a young girl with black hair and that same rose symbol in the same spot as the monster. All Might quickly took off his cape and covered her before lifting her up as the news helicopter began landing, hoping they did not get a video of the young girl naked. Where are you taking her? Endeavor shouted at him, trying to grab his rival's shoulder, clearly infuriated with All Might actions. I am taking her to UA where Nizu will be waiting. He responded as soon as he jumped off the ground. This young girl was clearly not in her right mind, and considering where she popped out of, Nizu may be the only one who can help her. All Might thought, hoping she was still somewhat okay after all this. Mirko decided to follow as she too was concerned for the girl, wanting to make sure she was okay. Mustafa UA, third-person POV, it was supposed to be a simple sweep of an illegal quirk lab, bash a few heads, save a few quirk trafficking victims, you know the usual. What he did not expect was someone with an out-of-control quirk to appear out of the building, killing everyone inside, destroying all evidence. By the time their rampage ended, about an eighth of Mustafa was reduced to rubble, well beyond a simple repair job. Now they will not be able to track down this group of quirk traffickers by capturing these so-called scientists running the illegal lab. What Nizu got instead was a monster movie with a beast so disturbing, it looked as though it crawled out of hell itself. The ability to breathe fire was unexpected to say the least, that combined with its powerful defense made it difficult for Endeavor to fight. Then the powerful regeneration ability that allowed them to almost instantly regrow at lost limbs. With 4 arms, and the powerful muscles in each of them, were able to block 1 strike each. They are able to block 5 of the top 10 heroes' attacks all at once with all of these traits. Then came their size. They were a bit taller than Mount Lady, which made them going out of control all the worse. From observing them he was almost sure they had no idea what was happening. Hopefully they could be captured and treated, he knows how horrible those places can be, and what they can do to you and your quirk. Nizu's expectations were surpassed unfortunately when they finally took them down, the quirk user shrunk back down. The mouse principal was expecting a young adult considering the strength of the quirk, but instead they saw a child, possibly a little younger than his students. It looked as though Endeavor just wanted to hand her to the police and lock her up, judging by the look on his face. The others seemed conflicted about All Might taking her to him at UA, except Mirko. The video was not in the best quality, but if he had read her lips correctly, she said, I am definitely going to teach her how to fight. This worried Nizu a little. But at least she wanted to help the girl in her own odd way. Then again, considering her personality, she probably just wants her to get stronger so they can have a rematch. As All Might was just landing outside of UA gates, he turned on the school intercom to tell All Might to go to Recovery Girl. When the heroine saw the girl, she paled and began examining her, taking a BLD sample, and for some reason she called Vlad after looking at the sample. Recovery Girl also contacted Sir Nighthigh and in no uncertain terms told him to get down to UA now or else. She also called Gran Torino over as well, saying this may likely involve that man which got the old man moving fast. Everyone who was gathered was Recovery Girl, Nizu, All Might, Sir Nighthigh, Eraserhead, Vlad King, Hound Dog, Present Mike, Midnight, Power Loader, Gran Torino and finally Mirko, who followed All Might to UA. Detective Tsukachi would be brought up to speed after to help with the investigation as key members of the police force needed to be informed. Why is Vlad here? We do not need any second-rate teacher's help. Eraserhead asked Recovery Girl pointing to Vlad. Yeah, why I am here? Did you just call me second-rate, you insomniac bstrd? He said, not realizing at first he was insulted. This garnered a few snickers from everyone present before Recovery Girl hit them with her cane, getting everyone's attention. I called him here because he has a BLD quirk, she said, making us all turn to the pale girl now taking notice of her fangs. This was certainly intriguing, but it also made sense to them now why she was ignoring the heroes and going after the civilians before. The heroes had not a single scratch on them, well except Endeavor, but his flames stopped any bleeding immediately. The civilians, however, they had all sorts of cuts from the rubble to them shoving and scratching each other. However, it seems as though she has been genetically altered to be stronger by imparting multiple quirks that by coincidence merged together, at least 4 by my count. Recovery Girl said as they all turned to a growl except for one man lost in thought. Who the hell did they think they are experimenting on a BLD quirk user? Vlad screamed as you visibly see the veins on his forehead. He calmed down however as he noticed how All Might was currently reacting to the news. Hey, what has you thinking right now that you aren't saying? He asked All Might, raising a brow. All Might stood there in silence for another moment before sighing and speaking up. Recovery Girl said they gave her multiple quirks and then they merged afterwards into one quirk. He said, seeing that it has finally dawned on everyone as they have finally caught up to what Recovery Girl said earlier except Recovery Girl and Gran Torino. But All Might, he is just an old legend. Present Mike was caught off by All Might. No, he isn't, and I should know, I tried to kill him. All Might shouted, shocking most of them there. They were not shocked because he shouted but shocked because he said he tried to kill someone who is apparently most likely behind this. Either he survived and has returned, or this group has found a way to do what he did to some extent, in which case other members with this dangerous information may still be out there. He said in a nearly whisper volume voice, getting the sense of worry across. With a cough, Recovery Girl got everyone's attention once more. Her skin is incredibly pale, suggesting she had very little exposure to sunlight, and her muscles are severely underdeveloped. It looks as though they also gave her the bare minimum of food needed to survive. Though this last part is my own guess. I think she was locked up since she was born, as she did not appear in the government database when I tested her DNA. Recovery Girl said, gripping her cane so hard you could hear the strain on her knuckles. They were all furious and knew that once the HPSC saw that footage they would go after her in a heartbeat. And HPSC stands for Hero Public Safety Commission. Before the group could continue further, the girl woke up and looked around, seemingly confused. Nizu had appeared to be right, and that she had lost control of her quirk before. When she saw them all, she smiled. Though on closer inspection, when you followed her line of sight, it landed on Mirko. Did she like the look of Mirko costume? Apologies, young lady, but can you tell me your name? Nizu asked her, getting a tilt of her head. She just seemed to look at him for a few minutes, making them all worried. Recovery Girl was stopped from telling them she had brain damage. Name? Maple. She said it as though she was asking a question rather than giving an answer. Also that broken speech. They all turned to Recovery Girl, who just shook her head yes, already knowing what they were gonna ask. They were the complete opposite of relieved. That was when Gran Torino continued to explain for everyone there. It is said that when All for One transferred multiple quirks to people, they became mindless dolls unable to respond. Like I said, they have seemed to have merged into one quirk, so she will mentally recover over time, but I do not know when. Recovery Girl said with a very bitter sigh as she had to pass the reins of Maple Healthcare mostly to Hold Dog now. Mirko decided to speak up and make a certain point clear before continuing any further as a group. First, we all agree to what we are obviously thinking. Personally, we all think that the kid should be given a chance to control her quirk before we start holding her accountable. Agreed. She asked, getting a rounds of nods and yes from everyone. Secondly, we need to keep her away from the HPSC. They once tried to chain me up like they did Hawk. No way in hell I am going to let that happen to her. I mean, yeah, he is strong, but the guy is so miserable, even I feel bad for him. Mirko said, once again getting them all to agree with her points. With that, they had decided that no one outside of this room would be told she had multiple quirks except for the few in the police force they can trust. After much debating, it was decided that Mirko would take care of her as she seemed to have an immediate liking to Mirko. Mirko had no problems with kids, but she pointed out how she was a bit unsure of her abilities to actually take care of them. Then the kid's stomach growled. Mirko was not an intellectual, but even she knew how to fix this situation. All right, let's take you to Lunch Rush and see if he has something for you to eat, she said to her, and got a tilt of her head for some reason. You don't eat animals alive? Maple asked, as she did due to her own confusion, which caused all their stomachs to churn at the realization of what such a question meant. To them all there it sounded like they fed her only living animals, which was both dangerous and cruel as they never given her real food before. For Maple, however, the reason for her broken speech and slow responses was due to her thinking carefully about her words as well as saying the bare minimum needed. Thinking this was like those Isekai light novels she read, she had assumed the world was like the game she played. Which is why she asked that question, as that was how she gained new skills. These things, however, resulted in disturbing misunderstanding for those here, as she was trying to be careful and normal for once. No honey, that is not. You know what, let's get you dressed in some more proper clothes, then get you something proper to eat, Midnight said, as Mirko could not fathom an answer right now. Recovery Girl began to shoo the men out of the room, by smacking them with her cane, if they did not move from her, poking them with it. Hound Dog asked why they were being kicked out, till Midnight explained on the nurse's behalf. I know you are all more worried about her mental health, but I don't know if you have not noticed, that she is wearing only a hospital gown right now, she pointed out, as all of them except Nizu, Aizawa, Gran Torino and Night Eye went a little red. You put this on her before taking her to the cafeteria, Midnight said, handing Mirko a track suit briefs while she did the top half for her, as well as add a baggy sweater twice her size to wear over it. Mirko realized that the sweater was because they had no underwear on standby for her to wear. I will give Nizu the measurements he needs to order for her after they come back in, Recovery Girl said, as they both nodded. Maple was at least able to dress herself if presented with clothes she seems to know how to wear. Once that is done, she put on a pair of sandals they managed to scrounge up for her. Maple held her hand the whole time as she led her to the cafeteria. Fortunately, only the teachers were here due to the incident. Nizu told Lunch Rush they were coming. Apparently, he made a lot for everyone up there, including them. What they did not expect was for Maple to eat enough for 6 large adult male heroes. By the time the others came down, they were shocked to find out that the 3 women had eaten almost all of what Lunch Rush made. Well, you two definitely have large enough appetites for students to believe she is your child, Nizu said jokingly to Mirko, as Lunch Rush said it would be another 30 minutes before they could eat. I do not eat that much, Mirko exclaimed at the comment he made about her. Though she was not as sensitive as that stuff compared to most women, Mirko still did not like being called fat or old. Then again, it could also be misconstrued as him saying she was a pervert when she was younger as well. You eat as much as 4 large adult male heroes, you know, Lunch Rush commented from the kitchen. He was the expert when it came to food, that includes preparation and serving amounts. That, and if she comment back, he might refuse to make her that famous steamed carrot recipe she loves so much. By the way, how do you feel about teaching combat lessons to the hero course here so you can help keep an eye on her? Nizu asked Mirko, actually catching me, the usually unflappable heroine, off guard. Normally her instincts are as sharp as his, so it is very rare for him to catch her off guard like that. She turned to Maple to see how she was holding her arm and sleeping against her right now with a satisfied smile. "So long as you let me call this little carrot my daughter in public, then gladly," Mirko said, probably giving the biggest SHT-eating grin they all had ever given. "By all means, the name Maple Usagiyama sounds perfect to me," he said, snickering as Mirko pet Maple head. "I will have all the paperwork for you to fill out for me tomorrow to have your writing hand limbered up," Nizu said, making the rabbit hero remember why she never lets her guard down around him. Chapter 2, Third-Person POV. It was the next day after Maple was brought to UA, where she was still asleep in her bed at the nurse's office. Nizu had made sure to cancel school for a few days to not just cover up Maple being there, but also so as to give the worried parents that UA will make sure they are secured after the incident with Maple monster form. Mirko had woken up and went to meet Nizu in his office to sign the papers he promised her yesterday. Ended up being as grueling as she had thought it was going to be. "I hate red tape as much if not more than the next guy, but even I do not cross the line of using it to torture other people like he does," Mirko thought as she had finished the last of the papers. What Nizu did not tell her, however, was that most of those were not adoption papers, but something else, just in case what he calculated to happen occurred. After that, they made their way to the infirmary, where Recovery Girl was looking at a half-asleep Maple who was currently cuddling her pillow. The nurse's face had an unsettled look before finally noticing the rabbit women and talking mouse enter with concerned looks themselves as they saw hers. "Why do you have that look on your face?" Nizu asked Recovery Girl, wondering why someone as stoic as her was making such a grimacing face. "Nizu, as you know, due to your policies, our hospital beds here are so stiff that compared to the students' beds at home it is not exactly called comfortable," Recovery Girl said as the two nodded to her comment. Taking a breath, she decided to rip off the band-aid, so to speak. When she woke, she said that it felt like she was sleeping on a cloud. She said as it sunk into the other two what that meant for Maple. It meant that she would to have been sleeping on bare floors at best, at worst. Well, they did not want to even start thinking about what was worst. For Maple, however, the reason it felt so pleasant to her was that her body is her one from the game. As a result, her extremely high defense made just about anything she slept on in this world comfortable. "When she sleeps at my place, she is going to call my bed a marshmallow, if she knows what that is. You know what, once we get closer to my house we will do a quick grocery trip," Mirko said, pausing twice to think over what she was saying. During the paperwork from hell, Mirko had decided with Nizu that in 11 months from now she would apply to UA entrance exam. Fortunately, she already seemed to know how to read and write. After she got dressed and ate her late breakfast, Nizu gave her a few tests. Other than history, which she got a 56 on, which surprised them as they expected much closer to 0. She got a 93 as the lowest mark among the others, with English being her getting the only one with a perfect score. For her temporary clothes, he got her a simple white blouse with a black skirt, a blue denim jacket, and a white baseball cap. Her shoes she was wearing were black loafers. Mirko suggested running shoes, but Nizu wanted to get her used to school uniforms in a piece-by-piece way. This outfit was temporary in the sense that Mirko would be taking her on a proper shopping trip after they got to her home. On the train ride to Tokyo, where Mirko lived, Maple would get excited whenever she saw a mutant quirk user, going as far as to hug someone with a turtle quirk. After an apology and claiming he looked remarkably familiar to a friend of hers, he waved it off as just another day and they continued on their way. Throughout the train ride, Maple was bouncing in her seat like a 5-year-old. This scene caused her to get concerning looks from the other passengers. As awkward as the looks she was getting from the other passengers, Mirko was happy seeing Maple smile. Every now and again Maple would ask Mirko what something was which the rabbit hero enjoyed. Little to Mirko knowledge, there were fans who recognized her and posted photos of her with her new daughter. When they got to Tokyo, they first went to the grocery store near Mirko house to get more food, as Mirko had not enough for the two of them. After they got so much, they called for a taxi to pick them up and bring them to her building she owned. She decided it was pointless to get an agency since she inherited this place from her grandfather. On top of that, she did solo work unless called in for a large group mission, so she lived and worked in the penthouse. She did so while renting out the rest of the floors below her out to various businesses, meaning she had this whole floor to herself. 'Cause of this she had a home gym with almost all the machines you could find in an actual gym, which includes a small boxing ring. In a corner she had a robot sparring partner she would use for practice matches, which she would have to replace on a weekly basis. In the bathroom she had a large bathtub big enough for 3 despite being asked when it was installed if she would really need to fit 3 people. It also came with a jacuzzi function, as well as a stand-in shower for whenever she needed to shower quickly. The living room had a HD TV twice Mirko own size with a DVD player for her old movies. She did not get speakers for it as her sensitive hearing made her dislike loud music. After they ate dinner the two took a relaxing bath with the jacuzzi setting, before going to sleep. Maple decided to follow Mirko lead and sleep naked as they both climbed into her bed together. It was good thing she did too, as with her current body she would be sweating bullets in her sleep, unlike if this was her original body. Mirko also slept naked for this same reason of comfort, as her rabbit quirk caused her body to have a high temperature, among other things. Mustafa HPSC headquarters, third-person POV. Though the incident was all over the news, no one got footage of the girl transforming and all the evidence was destroyed by her. This was a relief to the board members of the HPSC who were all gathered in a meeting with Hawks here. The meeting was taking place the day after the incident as they all scrambled to make sure their trail was covered for this. We gave them permission to use death row criminals, not children. A large man with ape-like features was wearing a business suit exclaimed as he slammed his closed fist onto the table. He was the head of training who oversaw the training of all hero candidates they got coming their way. People knew him as Executive Garaira, a strict yet somewhat fair man who only pushed you as far he feasibly could without you breaking down on him. Calm down, most of them died Siso, we only have a few left to deal with. A man with silver-like hair, glasses, and both snake-like eyes as we all as a tongue responded to him. He was the head of security who was overseeing not just their headquarters security measures but the ones of the lab as well. His name that people knew him by was Executive Hebe. He was cold and callous as his only concern was keeping their secrets safe, not people. Hebe is right, they have yet to learn that it was a facility under our control despite the minor info leak. So long as we have Hawks eliminate the few surviving scientists, then we can start the project again, but with a more thorough overview to prevent this from happening again. HPSC President said with clear intentions to try it again. The experiments were to figure out how to bestow multiple quirks on people like All for One could while keeping their minds intact. Overall their goal was simple, All Might could not live forever, so they needed to make a hero on equal terms with him. Then they decided why not make a whole army of them. That way they can lend out their ultimate heroes to other countries to get favors from them without having to leave themselves vulnerable. So then I take it I should get started on my hunt. Hawks asked, wanting to get this over with quickly. The president nodded to him as he got up to leave with the list of names, faces, and possible locations they could be at. If they had originally suggested experimenting on children, he would have put his foot down immediately. However, the fact is even they knew well enough the risk of experimenting on children. Since they were using death row criminals who were going to get executed anyway, he did not care, as either way they would die. With the hunt for them underway, we need to get her back to us if in case despite any brain damage she remembered them saying our name. Executive Hebe said, adjusting his glasses. With an unanimous agreement they began tracking her down, looking into all UA teachers and the heroes there to see if any took her. They were in despair when they saw Mirko had adopted her, as she would not bend to them easily and was equally if not stronger than Hawks in combat. Looks like we will have to beat around the bush with this one. The HPSC president said, rubbing her temples at the stubborn wall of but kicking fluff they were now facing off with. After a bit more time along with plenty of arguing on what their next move would be, the meeting ended with Executive Hebe and Executive Garaira taking the lead for now. Tokyo, third-person POV. Feeling the sensation of Mirko patting her head, Maple moved her head back a bit to see the rabbit hero smiling. Letting out a yawn and letting go of the rabbit women to stretch her arms, they began getting dressed. Maple wore the same outfit as yesterday, as she had yet to go clothes shopping, only being able to change her underwear. Mirko made them boiled eggs, 20 for her and 35 for Maple, along with steamed carrots for the two of them. Needless to say, Mirko decided to take her truck out to go shopping this time, as they needed to get more groceries as well. However, as they were just about to leave, Mirko got a buzz from downstairs, and the person who buzzed her was Midnight. With reluctance she let her in and opened the elevator for her, tapping her foot all the while with Maple stroking her rabbit ears. "So what brought you here today?" Mirko asked Midnight, already having a good guess at what it was. "I am here to see how Maple is adjusting to things and make a quick report for Nizu," Midnight said in her civilian clothes, clasping her hands together, smiling as her head was slightly tilted. "So in other words, you wanted to come to cuddle with Maple, and so you bothered Nizu till he gave in and let you come to visit," Mirko said as Midnight chuckled before wrapping Maple in a hug, with her face in the heroine's bosom as Midnight patted her head. Maple for her part was enjoying all the hugs and head pats she was getting from all these people around her. "Yup, pretty much," Midnight said, grinning ear to ear as she let go of the hug once Maple started trying to pull away for precious oxygen. After some reluctance she agreed to it, and for the rest of the day they would refer to each other by their first names. They went around to different clothing stores and shoe stores as Mirko realized she enjoyed dressing Maple up. There was a few times where the workers in those clothing stores called her a doting mom, which embarrassed Mirko quite a bit. It also did not help the fuzzy hero that Maple, once her stomach grumbled, tugged on her arm asking if they could get lunch. By the time lunch rolled around they had 20 or so different outfits for her bought and packed into Mirko truck. Deciding to show Maple to a Katsudon shop where Midnight finished eating before the two of them. People were so taken aback by the small girl's appetite that many assumed she had a quirk based around eating. They were kind of right, but also completely wrong as well. Fortunately for Maple, since no one except the heroes saw her transform back to normal, no one was freaking out with her being there. Maple had decided to wear one of her outfits she bought today home as it reminded her of one of her guild mates. She was currently wearing black and green striped knee socks, which drew the attention of any boys she would pass by that day to her thighs. A checkered skirt in the colors of black and green to go with the color scheme. For her shirt it was a white blouse, over top of it was a light sweater in a light green color which she wore due to the slightly chilly winds today. The twins would appreciate the reference to them I made when picking out a few of my outfits, wouldn't they? Maple asked in her head to those unable to see her and had T.I. imagine the outfit she was wearing. And, Maple is someone so airheaded that I find it reasonable that she would break the fourth wall. However, she is also described as one of the most intelligent people in her school, as stated by her friend Sally in the light novel. This combination of airheadedness and high intelligence is similar to another female main character from a different book series. This other series is called, Didn't I Say to Make My Abilities Average in the Next Life, a series that was posted around the same time as Bofuri as a web novel, and this has no bearing on the story, by the way. It was just a fun fact I wanted the readers to know as I enjoy both stories. But if any fans want to send me a picture they drew of Maple in the outfit I just described, I will gladly give you a shout out and credit for the image, as I also post this story on Wattpad where you can add pictures to your stories. What came next for the group was grocery shopping, with each of them taking a whole cart each, which confused the staff. That is until they began filling them to the brim, instantly clearing out the chicken and carrots, scarring the employees half to death. The workers who saw this got their manager swiftly, only to make it back in time to see almost every type of fruit nearly empty now as well. Catching up to them, they saw all the rice they had left on the shelves gone. Which, despite not being much as this was now the evening, was still a significant amount for 2 adult women and a young girl to be buying. Then came the health and hygiene products, where once again most of a certain type of product was bought up. The ladies had moved on to moisturizers and fruit-scented body washes, mainly due to Maple quirk side effects. It seemed that due to her quirk her skin got dry rather quick in any slightly warm weather. They continued on to toilet paper, in which they bought a normal amount, which momentarily relieved the workers. This relief was short-lived, however, as they moved on to skis and sauces, putting a sizable dent in those. Then when they got to the pancake and waffle mixes, Mirko got 30 boxes, asking if they had more in the back, making the employee faint and the manager telling her they were out till tomorrow. Mirko made a half-whispered comment to herself about understocked grocery stores and how she would have to come back for more tomorrow to get more. This nearly made the manager fall over as he heard it due to his quirk giving him slightly enhanced hearing. Next was the bakery, which they cleaned out as Mirko had a walk-in freezer in her apartment so they could easily store all the bread in there till they needed to use them. Granted, they would probably be defrosting a few loaves every night once you take into account how hungry Maple will be once they start training her to control her quirk. All in all, the stuff they bought would likely last her a week by her estimate, give or take a few days more depending on how she stretches out Maple rest days. The total came to approximately what would cost an average restaurant a month in expenses, and this would most likely last her only a week and a half. Manager, cashiers, other employees, and even other customers nearly had a heart attack imagining themselves having to pay that amount all at once. The rabid women, however, that people were too shocked to realize was Mirko, happily grinned and paid for it all like she was buying a pop at the corner store. For Mirko, this total, if paid 3 times a month, was barely a third of what she made from her building rent. Once she took her other expenses into account, she still had enough left over every month to tuck away into a savings account for Maple for when she gets older. When they returned home, Mirko offered for Nemuri to stay for dinner and cuddles as they played an old Studio Ghibli film. With a nice dinner of carrot stew with chunks of chicken in it, and 2 loaves of whole wheat bread to go with it. After they ate, they went to the bathroom with Midnight beating Mirko in rock paper scissors for the right to wash Maple hair. Enjoying the nice soak as Midnight hugged Maple with the girl using as pillow as she laid back. Maple could feel the stiffness in her muscles finally begin to loosen since she came to this world, as she took in the lavender scent of Midnight. With a bit of debating and compromise, they went to sleep with Maple between the two, cuddling her as they drifted off to a peaceful sleep at last. Chapter 3, Third-Person POV. Mirko and Midnight had woken up to see Maple drooling on Midnight's as she was sound asleep. Maple, who could feel their gazes on her while still asleep, woke up groggily, leaning into Midnight's hug together. Once they got up and dressed, they made 3 boxes of the pancake mix with 20 oranges overall, 2 for Midnight, 6 for Mirko, and 12 for Maple. After finishing off the pancakes and oranges, with Midnight watching the other 2 finish with her plate being already empty. "So Nemuri, why are you still here? Don't you have things to do at UA?" Mirko asked her, raising an eyebrow at the heroine helping her wash dishes while Maple watched the new Shera cartoon. "Nizu cancelled school for the next few days, so he said I could stay and help with the start of her training," she said, grinning at the rabbit hero, who was not looking amused. With a heavy sigh, Mirko simply shook her head at this, hoping this would not be the normal from now on. "You know what, fine, just don't teach her any of your dirty habits," Mirko said as Midnight pumped her arm like she had just won something. Once the dishes were either washed or put in the right sink filled with hot water and soap to soak, they went to get Maple. Midnight had called Nizu and asked if they could come to UA to test her quirk out, and he said yes to them. Grabbing what they would need, they were about to leave when Mirko got a buzz from downstairs, which was odd as very few people knew she lived here, let alone owned the building. Seeing the camera, she saw it was a man in a suit with a suitcase she did not recognize. He was a tall man of an average build. He was just over 6 feet in height and his glasses rested on the bridge of his nose. His hair was neatly cut and was a solid black with a gleam of hair gel in it to keep it in place. Turning the intercom on, she spoke. "Who are you and why are you here?" she said, making sure to put extra attitude in her voice. With a clearing of his throat and a showy tie adjustment, he responded with a rather smug look. "I am Juno, the manager of the Tokyo Department of Child Protective Services, and I am here to determine whether or not you can take care of this child while still being a hero," he said, giving her a business-friendly smile. With much displeasure, she let him up while Midnight got Nizu on video call, letting the mouse know what was happening. "Well then, if you do not mind, how about we start with a short tour of your apartment?" Juno said, smiling smugly till he heard a high-pitched cackling in seeing Principal Nizu of UA on a video call with Midnight. "Yes, let's. I hope you do not mind if I joined this tour. As someone who has offered to guarantee Maple a spot in UA when the time comes for her to apply, as well as a job to Mirko teaching," Nizu said, smiling as he patted his tiny lap with his paws. With a strained smile, the CPS branch manager allowed it and followed Mirko lead as she showed them all through the whole floor. This shocked Juno as he did not realize she lived on a whole floor and expected to see her living in the attic of this building, not the whole top floor. As a result, the first of many wrenches were now thrown to his plan to prove that she was not a fit parent. Continue the tour. They made their way to Maple bedroom eventually, where he did not see any pajamas and found out that Mirko encouraged the girl to sleep naked. At first he thought this was going to be possible ammunition for him, however what he would later find out was this led to the second wrench in his plans. The second wrench was later found out to be that recovery girl and hound dog would later press charges against him for tampering with their patient health. This was due to the fact that Maple Quirk essentially required her to sleep naked due to, my apologies, but these facilities simply will not do. Not to mention I still cannot allow someone as violent as Mirko to raise a child, especially one that is not her own. He said, keeping a neutral face while screaming on the inside, hoping Nizu will keep her restrained. This made both the rabbit hero as well as the other female hero there with her to become upset, to say the least. Midnight however kept her cool as Nizu instructed and was patiently keeping her phone facing the man, with the red light blinking. On top of, what about the HPSC? Surely one of their facilities will be more efficient and more safe. Training her at UA would put your dear students in danger. The CPS Mustafa branch manager bit back at me, regaining some confidence. The smug look on his face was something they all were disgusted by, to the point where even Nizu was highly tempted to smack it off his face by now if he was there in person, repeatedly at that. You know, last I checked her DNA was not registered in the government database. He said in a triumphant hum. First off, what gives you the right to claim we cannot train her to control her quirk? Secondly, you still need to tell us where you learned that. Mirko said, getting ready to right hook. Nizu had to admit even he was intrigued as to the second half of his statement, though he could hazard a guess as to the first. To answer your second question from before, endeavor and send it to HPSC, who then told both him and us of the results. The CPS Mustafa branch manager said, calmly clasping his hands together. This calm returning to him felt like the calm before the storm that Nizu instincts told him that he was about to inform them about next. As for the doubt in your abilities, well, you found her in an illegal quirk lab, so since she was not on record meant she most likely spent her entire life in captivity. I doubt a high school guidance counselor and a school nurse is capable of helping her overcome that trauma. He said, making them both irate as well as sick to their stomachs, with him trying to pull Maple out of the apartment with him. Both Nizu and Mirko wanted to maul the man to death for insulting the abilities of people who they have come to trust. Nizu, due to his countless students, the two had helped him and the other teachers to mold into the best heroes they could. Mirko was due to how they both had shown her support and trust in raising the girl, despite most people probably agreeing with this man who came here today about her potential parenting skills. Nizu however began cackling as he had been given the ammunition needed to deal a significant blow to at the very least endeavor if not the HPSC as well. This is quite troublesome, for you see, the mission was a classified case that very few were allowed to know of. He said as the man stiffened, realizing he just metaphorically shot himself and that him trying to carry the girl away was possibly no longer justified. Nizu tapped his fingers in a wave-like motion on his lap for a moment before speaking up once again. Mirko, could you do me a favor and arrest this man for stealing classified information? Nizu asked her, for which the hero gladly replied, taking him down with a roundhouse kick, causing an indent of his face to appear on her wall. Despite this momentary joy he felt from seeing this, the mouse principal was now seriously considering whether or not the HPSC had a connection to that illegal quirk lab. I guess only time will tell whether we are dealing with all for one of if the HPSC is trying to make their own version of him, he thought with an internal sigh at the potential mess this new option could be. After all of that, Nizu had her call the police to inform them of this. They found large sums of money being sent to Juno from an offshore account. However, they could not link it to anyone, so they could not go after the HPSC quite yet. Since it was the case of his word against theirs with no proof in his part except for the detective's lie detector quirk, neither possible enemy could be charged with him. Granted, the fact they supposedly gave classified information to the man along with endeavor, though they denied it, still damaged their reputation quite a bit. This suspicion and his recorded words from Midnight's quote-unquote video call were enough to make the rest of CPS approve of the adoption. Also as a result it caused a suspicious eye from other government departments to be on the two for a while, giving them some breathing room for the time being. That day they managed to determine with certainty that if Japan Mirko PR Agent Office, Koshui Gento POV, I had been her PR agent for the past 6 years, out of all the things I expected to have to deal with, her becoming a mother was not one of them. She was simple enough to work for, glorify her fights, show off her alluring figure for both the men and women who find her attractive. When it came to showing off and greeting fans, she was a natural who loved to hear the applause of the crowd as she fought. Up till now the worst the HPSC could use to try and lower her image was her fighting in illegal quirk rings when she was younger. However, it was never proven, so the best they could do was discreetly point out her technically criminal past on social media platforms every now and again. Then it changed when she took in that child who destroyed an eighth of the city, that gave the HPSC fuel for their fire. Normally I would not be allowed this information, but the police deemed it necessary as I am basically Mirko right hand and therefore there was no need to keep me in the dark. The HPSC had been kicking up a ruckus discreetly on her online fan forums by making some rather harsh comments. Majority of them seemed to be based around Mirko being unfit to be a parent and how she had adopted a child with powerful dangerous quirk. They kept the details to themselves officially but used these accounts to leak the information about Maple, with Nizu telling me they cannot be caught from it. As a result, many civilians and business owners who had their homes or businesses destroyed were aggravated by a hero defending the girl. Noticing a rise in sympathetic individuals on the social media platforms, I had her send any pictures of her and this Maple girl. It was at nearly 100 and it has only been 2 days of her having the girl in her care. Fortunately most of them were not good enough for social media. So I only had to touch up a few of them before sending them off to her social media account homepage for all to see. It was a great success as the hashtag MamaMirko and hashtag BunnyHouse4CuteGirls were trending rapidly, especially the second one after the latest incident. When Nizu sent me the video of Mirko beating up the CPS agent, I was worried that her good publicity would go down the drain. Nizu, this is bad news. I shouted, worried now how the HPSC and CPS would start saying how she was teaching her to be more violent. On the contrary, him trying to forcefully take her away gave the police grounds to investigate him. This is assuming he was working for the HPSC, resulting in considerable backlash, albeit behind the scenes, for them. Nizu said gleefully, nickering to himself. Well, either way, speaking strictly as Mirko PR agent, taking the child and is doing good for her image I never thought possible. I said, letting out a relieved sigh. Looks like you really did have a backup plan, but it looks like the rumors were right, getting in the middle of one of Nizu's schemes really took it out of you. In any case, I will release the video at 3 p.m, will those untraceable fake accounts you set up be ready again? I asked, getting a nod from him. They will be ready by then. With the first 300 comments designed to be positive, it should keep the HPSC from messing with Mirko and Maple too badly. He said as the video call ended with him wishing me a pleasant evening. So I touched up the video a bit, making it do a close-up on her comforting the girl with a few visual effects added. The responses past the first few hundred Nizu made were as expected. I still could not believe he could do that. He was in perfect control of the flow of her media account by setting up just a few hundred responses in advance of a posting. It was even more so impressive that he was able to hide the account trails so well as he had. Mustafa, LA Brava POV, when the principal of UA had found us, me and Gentle were worried as to the reason why, until he informed us of the situation. We could tell he was hiding some important info from us, but the fact remained, neither of us would even think of turning him down on his offer. If we did, then we might have had to stomach the thought of a little girl being turned into a human weapon by the HPSC. I can still remember the conversation with him when we got a random video call from him just about a few days ago. To think that all he needed was for me to make 300 fake social media accounts and have them immediately respond to her next video or photo. With him giving me the times and the images to be posted, I was able to create a simple algorithm of generic positive comments for each. I must admit, I was really hoping for the day HPSC blew their top so I could release the video of one of their heroes we had. Part of the deal was that he would look the other way to our minor criminal activities in exchange for our help. He said that if we ended up inspiring his future students to try harder to be better heroes, then a few robberies were a small price to pay. However, that video had to wait to be released until he deemed it the right time to make best use of it. Perhaps making a deal with Nizu to take that DMN group of glory hogs and puppeteers down a few pegs was gonna be better than I though it was. Love Lair, AFO Room, third-person POV, All for One was currently watching a video of the creature rampaging with his doctor while discussing the Nomu. Well, my old friend, it appears we are not the only ones trying to create the Nomu. He said, grinning like a child who had just found an amusing new toy. Chapter 4 Tokyo, third-person POV, Mirko was taking Maple to the mall today as it has been 2 weeks now since she brought her home and has seemed to adjust well enough. Minus the fact she accidentally ate her spoon twice the previous day while eating her soup, but with her stomach acid it was all right according to Recovery Girl. In fact, she said that maple vomit could likely give a person first-degree burns if purposely done, due to how potent it is. This they found out after they saw no spoon in the X-ray and induced vomiting, only for said vomit to cause present Mike, who had the misfortune of getting it on him, to suddenly scream from pain. Fortunately, Eraserhead shut him up by nullifying his quick and knocking him out with a right hook for everyone's sake. However, when someone recognized them incognito mode and Maple freaked out, the crowd ended up separating them. This caused Mirko to freak out and yell at them all to back off so she could find her daughter. They all scared off. Fortunately for her, Ingenium was in the area with his brother doing some clothes shopping when they heard the commotion and agreed to help her. What she ended up finding made her blood boil, and as a result she ran forward prepared to kick her way through the problem like always. Maple, after slipping through the excited and jostled crowd via crawling through their legs, found an alley not too far where there was no one following her. However, as she was finally taking notice of the details of the alley, she noticed a girl sitting down against the wall of one of the buildings. Her blonde hair was in two small messy buns on either side of her head, her yellow cat eyes were dilated. Sharp intakes of breath were her only source of oxygen, which suddenly stopped when she took notice of Maple. After she took a step forward towards them. Before she could say anything, the girl dashed towards her, box cutter pulled out. The blonde girl grabbed one of Maple's arms with her free hand while the one holding the knife was brought to her neck. Maple, however, was far too focused on the girl's disheveled appearance to realize she was swinging a knife at her. What she did notice, however, was a particular scent. She had become Himiko, who was utterly surprised at the kindness of the girl standing before her, had begun to tear up as she dropped the box cutter. Almost falling down as the girl caught her with both arms, slowly falling to their knees as Himiko began to feel the intense warmth of Maple's body radiate into her. She then bit Maple's shoulder with her full strength unintentionally, and her overflowing emotions, she had no composure left at the moment. Maple, who barely felt anything at all, simply patted her head as telling the girl it was going to be all right now. She had recovered her senses to notice the other girl was smiling at her, seeming pleased with what happened. They introduced themselves as Maple. It was a cute name and its sweetness suited her perfectly. "My name is Himiko." "It is just Himiko. Hey, can we dash?" But she was cut off by the huff from a well-known hero, Endeavor, spotting them. Well, look at what we have here. 2 monsters in one go. This made things much easier for me now," Endeavor said, hating he could not go after Maple at the time of the incident. However, now that he spotted her in an NTMT moment with a wanted psychopath who nearly killed her classmate a few days ago, he could arrest her. Now the request made to his agency to track the Toga girl down seemed like it was no longer a waste of his time. "You two are under arrest," he declared, grabbing them by their necks in a way that won't choke them but will also prevent them from biting him. However, before he could walk back into the city streets with his villains and hand them to his sidekicks, he was suddenly kicked through the wall. To the people passing by, Endeavor had just suddenly burst from behind the wall separating the streets from the warehouses behind them. With him now no longer holding them, Mirko unintentionally took both girls into her embrace, making sure they were okay. After picking himself up, Endeavor had begun to glare at Mirko with great disdain for getting in his way again. "How dare you? Your daughter was caught trying to help that VAL dash." He did not get to finish his sentence as Mirko kicked him again. This time lifting him in the process with her foot while doing so, sending him crashing through all the lamp lights in the street as his flames only made them break easier. By the time his sidekicks double back around they saw their boss land on the pavement. Seeing that it was Mirko at the other end of the street in a fighting stance, they already could figure out what happened. They were about to attack her for interfering with their search for the young villain on the loose when suddenly the police sirens were heard. When they got there, everyone, which unfortunately included Endeavor, gave their statements. Of course Endeavor's sidekicks, despite not seeing the two girls together themselves, vouched for their boss, saying he was telling the truth. Mirko and Maple along with the new girl gave their accounts of what happened. "I am sorry, but she does have a warrant out for her arrest," the office said, about to handcuff Himiko, when Ingenium of all people grabbed his hand. "My apologies, but based off what we had been told, I cannot allow you to arrest a victim of discrimination. If you want to arrest them, then do so after a proper investigation into the girl's family had been done." "Okay." The last word he said was not a request but an order, one that the officer did not feel like chancing disobeying. This tone of voice caught Mirko off guard as well for a second, as she had thought it was impossible for Ingenium to sound so threatening. After a call to Nizu, he had recovery girl set up a test at a hospital that he knew neither Endeavor nor any other parties involved could tamper with. Though the parents denied it, Himiko, despite being fairly athletic, was still clearly malnourished due to her knot. It took a few days, but soon after it was revealed that not just the parents but the so-called support group and the school she attended told her to suppress her quirk's urges. As such, she was declared not sound of mind when she attacked the young man and would have been taken into foster care. However, after determining how similarly the two girls have suffered in the past, they decided that it was best they had each other for support. This resulted in Mirko adopting the Toga daughter, whose new name was now Himiko Toga, as she refused to use the name her parents gave her. Her rehabilitation, as demanded by the victim boy parents, would attend UA along with Maple so they could teach them taught together. This made the victim parents upset, saying how such a cozy life was not the rehabilitation the quote-unquote animal deserved. Fortunately for them, Midnight was able to keep Mirko calm, as Nizu made it clear that Himiko was a victim as well in all of this, very arguably the most affected victim. As for the exact punishments, the parents were charged with things like child abuse, lying to the police, and a few others which also included some basic human rights laws. However, their lawyers managed to lower it from death row to 69 years in prison with no bail and no real hope of a retrial. Granted, they were already in their late 30s, so they will be in their late 90s if not early hundreds when they are done their sentence. The head of that support group her parents brought her to was sent to prison for more or less the same crimes but on multiple accounts, along with a few other charges that the parents did not get due to his profession. However, since he was already in his late 50s, he accepted the death penalty, as even if he got a reduced sentence he would be well into his hundreds with what his reduced one would have been. He was hanged a few months afterwards, but not before how utterly Nizu, recovery girl, and Hound Dog made sure to obliterate his professional reputation. The other children of the group had their parents investigated, finding similar but fortunately less aggressive and abusive situations to Himiko. With much gusto, Nizu made sure to help find them new foster parents immediately. Speaking of other kids, her younger brother was taken in by his aunt and uncle, something Nizu did not even try to fight considering the gap between the treatment between him and his sister. He had changed his last name, to what Nizu nor anyone except him as well as his aunt and uncle knew was, so the principal put it out of mind for now. Teachers at the school were all fired and sent to prison for significantly less time than the previous two, but prison nonetheless. The school was shut down as a result, with the ones owning that private school being barred from opening any educational facility again. Their lawyers had managed to reduce what little prison time they could have gotten down to a fine. All in all, Nizu was pleased that despite an incident occurring they were able to avoid young Himiko killing someone and having to live with that for the rest of her life. Though he doubted she would ever be normal, she could be at least normal enough to safely live as a functional member of society. Besides, in Nizu's rather unique opinion, normal was overrated and boring. He preferred his students to have a little personality to them. Unfortunately, Endeavor had no punishment thrown his way, as the police originally were the ones to ask him for his help in the manhunt for the young girl. Since they did not get the full story beforehand, he could not be blamed for not knowing her circumstances. Rather, the police were the ones shamed by this mistake for not realizing right away how suspicious it sounded. However, with the more capable officers and detectives occupied with ongoing cases, only the mediocre or biased ones were unfortunately left. As a result, they instantly assumed the quirk user was 100% guilty, and that was that. After all that nonsense involving the parents ending on 2 weeks, Himiko was now officially Mirko daughter as well. Midnight ended up spending almost all her days off now visiting them and staying the night, not that Mirko would admit she liked. Once they reached the 2 months mark of Maple being there, it was decided by Hound Dog it was time for her to see where they found her. It was unsure how she would react, but he felt the odds of her freaking out and full transforming again were low enough to chance it. However, one thing Mirko did not expect with Midnight coming with them, this happened to lead to the mistake in relationship people passing by were making. Those two look like good parents. Do you think the black-haired one gave BRTH to both the girls? I wonder how long they have been married. It is hard to tell. These comments were making Mirko now aware of how people were viewing their little group. Are you okay, honey? You look like you are getting a little red. Midnight asked with an amused smirk as she pressed the back of her hand against Mirko's forehead. This now convinced the rabbit hero that her friend was also listening in to the people around them, not just her. I am perfectly fine, I am just hot. Mirko said back, raising her voice a little, causing everyone to turn to them now, looking directly at them. Oh God, how can this get any worse? She thought just a moment before she would regret it. DMN straight, you are hot. Midnight said in a sultry tone before tapping Mirko on the nose playfully before sticking her tongue out in a playful manner. As she quickly, almost skipping, retreated to Maple and Himiko, Mirko was stunned, not sure what to do next. After a few snickers and some comments from the women around them about cute of a wife she made. It took only a second for this to sink in before she chased after Midnight, telling her not to dare leave her behind and never to do that in public again. So it is okay for me to play with your nose at home then? The 18-plus heroine asked in obvious sarcasm, getting another annoyed response from Mirko. Nizu would eventually hear about this incident and make fun of Mirko for it every chance he got. Shortly after this, and when she had calmed down, they came across a green-haired boy covered in bruises, burns, with what even looked like a few stab wounds. This unfortunately caused them to delay Maple seeing the disaster site any further, as the two girls insisted on bringing the boy to the hospital. When they got there, they found out that his mother was a supposed victim in the attack when Maple went on a rampage. However, what the other police officers he told did not believe and threw him out onto the streets. The countless scars, bruises, and cuts were almost all from over the years, his back and chest resembling a stomach-churning patchwork. Mustafa UA, third-person POV, Mirko, Midnight, Maple, Himiko, and Izuku Midoriya were all standing in front of Nizu's desk with Detective Tsukachi standing beside Nizu. You are creating a lot of work for us police these days, Mirko, exposing corrupt educators and finding problem children. Detective Tsukachi said in a joking manner. I am not doing this on purpose. Mirko screamed back mildly at him in frustration with her luck. Well, in any case, this makes the second school you helped us to shut down. Though this is the first school where we had to actually arrest some of the children. Nizu said, thinking back to Bakugo Katsuki. After they investigated the school, unlike the other kids who got arrested and sent to juvenile prison, he got sent to an adult prison. The reason was due to the laws only protecting him till he was 7 when it came to his quirk hurting people. As such, for just a little over the past 7 years he has committed crimes like assault, and public quirk use in combination. Since he admitted to doing it all on purpose and due to the severity of his damage he did to Izuku, he was trialed as an adult. And due to his admitting to it freely, his defense lawyer his parents got him was unable to do anything for him. He would have tried for a plea deal, but with all the evidence and ready to backstab witness testimony he was a sure success, so no plea deal would ever be accepted. As for the officers who threw Izuku aside and refused to hear him out, the detective has already taken care of them. Once he brought these allegations to his superiors, they gave him full authority to investigate these officers. It turned out they knew and even participated sometimes in what those two officers who died used to do, the quirkless women or women who complained about their quirkless kid getting attacked asking to press charges. Both officers were fired and sentenced to spend what would basically be the rest of their natural lives in jail, assuming others prisoners did not kill them first. What we need to do now is decide guardianship, since his father has not responded back to us and had stopped sending money to his mother's account once it was closed. Nizu said, already knowing who he could ask. Fine, if he is okay with me adopting him, then just give me the necessary papers to sign. Mirko said, already seeing how this was gonna turn out. Especially since he was and still is pretty much clinging to her side since he woke up in the hospital. Well, are you? Nizu asked Izuku Midoriya with a soft smile, already guessing the answer. If she is okay with adopting a quirkless kid like me. Izuku stammered, still unsure if she will throw him aside like everyone else since he was quirkless. Mirko let out a hard sigh at this. Kid, I do not care if a person is quirkless or what their quirk is. So long as they do not hurt innocent people and do their best at whatever the hell it is they do, then I am happy to know them. Mirko said, ruffling his hair with a smirk. Her competitive side showing in her little speech. Just like Himiko, Izuku was going to keep his last name as it reminded him of his mother. Earlier in the day when Maple had arrived, third-person POV, the principal of Aldera Junior High had just finished a conversation with Inko Midoriya and her son about how he passed out in the doorway of their home covered in fresh bruises as well as burns. She had threatened legal action against them and the Bakugo family for what has happened to her son. Not backing down after he threatened to expel her son for causing trouble for their best student and putting a black mark on her son's record. This would be bad if she actually brought her son to a doctor to be examined before going to the police. Deciding this had to be taken care of quickly, he called a police officer that he usually does to alter reports while shutting up the parents. Fortunately for him this time it was just the mother of a quirkless child whose husband lives overseas working. So this time they could just outright kill her. Without having to worry about any repercussions. That is, it normally would be how this would go for the man, if he did not make a mistake in trusting the competency of these officers as well as Izuku Midoriya luck. While the mother and son were on their way home, they were spotted by the officers on their way to the pair's house. Unfortunately for the officers, Izuku was in the convenience store. Deciding that he was just not in the area, they arrested his mother first, deciding he would be useless without her. What they did not realize was he saw them cuff his mother, and drive off towards the warehouse district part of Mustafu where he followed them. Most people would think a quirkless kid could not follow them on foot while they were driving a car. But by watching the TV broadcasts on his phone of the local hero fights, he spotted their car driving in the background. Following it route via that, he made his way deeper into Mustafu on their trail. This was where he witnessed them use his mother for their pleasure, paralyzed by fear and shock before she noticed him. The only word she mouthed before her soon-to-be death was, "Get home," before he took her words and ran for it. However, a monster appeared literally a few warehouses over from where they were later that day. He tried reporting what he saw to two officers during a night shift the next day as he had passed out, rather hard when he noticed his mother's green hair sticking out from between two of the monster's toes. The officers, however, simply shooed him away and after a quick bash with a baton, told him that his mother clearly died from the monster and that he should not accuse cops of such horrible crimes. Despite news of her death spreading around the school via Katsuki Bakugo, he was continued to be beaten. Once his father stopped sending money, he would soon be left with nothing to eat, so he ended up wandering the streets, unable to continue living in the home that reminded him of his mother. As for the officers, that day Izuku's mother died, while trying to get the body ready to burn to remove their DNA evidence. A black scaly monster that could only be described as a demon appeared from the building over to one of their sides. Due to being in the alleyway hiding, no one noticed them when SHT hit the fan, resulting in them being stepped on, but not dying. Instead, they spent almost the entirety of the monster fight, stuck between the toes of one of its 2 feet. Barely alive while constantly being put into more pain with each step it took with them along for its ride. Eventually, after they died, their corpses were scraped off its feet and buried under rubble after the beast took a considerable hit. Chapter 5, Third Person POV. it had been 2 months since Maple had disappeared into that portal. However, what most did not know, unlike Sally, it was the fact that her real body went missing as well. This shocked the families of the 2 girls, and devastated Sally. At the 2 months mark she gave in and gathered all of Maple Tree as well as the heads of Flame Emperors as well as the Holy Sword Guilds. Needless to say, they were all shocked and taken by surprise, but did not think she was making it up, as they all knew Sally and Maple were friends IRL. So when Sally said she was going to get past the field of monsters, the admin set up to prevent people from going through the portal. In order to find Maple on the side of it, they calmed her down enough to try and propose a plan to help her. The reason for the field of monsters, something the creators did not want to admit, was that for some reason in terms of software that portal did not exist. Nor could they make the space in the game it was on untouchable for whatever reason, so their solution. Since Maple was gone, they filled the area with every boss monster in the game so that only Maple stood a chance of getting past them all to the portal. Wait a minute, why are you 2 wanting to risk your lives to help me? My guild mates I can get, but why you 2? Sally asked Payne and me after they proposed they go with her through the portal to back her up. I cannot stand by and do nothing while my true rival is in unknown danger. Me said, placing her right hand on her chest with a huff in an exaggerated fashion. I'm hurt, am I not strong enough to call your rival? Payne responded to me in a sarcastic voice. Me simply returned it with curt humph. But as for why I am helping Maple, well, as a fellow great shielder I want to help her, he said as the room suddenly became silent with even his guild mates staring at him in awe. Did I say something odd just now? Payne asked them all, pulling a Maple just now without realizing it. You're a great shielder. Everyone shouted as they began drowning him in questions left and right. After a bit more time answering their bewildered questions, he got them back on topic. Currently there is a literal army of boss monsters standing between us and the portal. But I have a plan to get around that issue. Payne told them as he began telling them his plan to increase their numbers for the plan. Are you sure this will work? Sally asked him, not completely confident in his idea. It will, as someone who job IRL it is to calm down a client's angry customer base. I also know by extension how to rile up a customer base. Payne said, smirking before they finalized the details of the plan. They made sure that only the executives in this room knew the truth of what was going to happen. Making sure to exchange contact info for their families or bosses as well as their real-life info with one another. However, Sally made them all agree on one thing first: if they were to ever get separated, then their priority goal was to rescue Maple first and not stray from the mission by trying to find the others, trusting them to either find a way home themselves after they rescued Maple. The day had come, and both Payne and me sent their guild's great shielders to lead the charge against the boss monsters with a plan. All the great shielders all had stout guardian and max health recovery potions to survive the first 2 waves of attacks, with the long-range fighter blasting them with magic or arrows. Then the frontline fighter moved in after them, carving a pathway down the middle, while the long range continued to do more damage where their comrades were not. Normally just 2 whole guilds could not keep up with the almost instant respawn rate of all these boss monsters long enough to reach the portal. However, Payne had declared a challenge on as many of the messaging boards for the game he could, rattling almost all the other guilds to join the fight as well. It was decided that only Payne and me from the 2 guilds would go with Sally, Chrome, as well as Mai and Yui. Everyone at first rejected their volunteering for the mission, but after being told their story they relented, much to the joy of the 2 young girls. Mai and Yui, it turned out that they had gotten a deadly illness that was treatable but not curable. As a result, they had only a few years left to live, as the treatments only delayed it. So when Maple gave them the chance to make friends for the first in their lives, and go on adventures, it was the literal world to them. As such, dying while saving her was something they were okay with. However, they would only provide Sally and the others with support due to their young age. The admins watching this were freaking out, wondering why in the fresh hell all these guilds thought they had something to prove. Admin number 1, look there. Holy Sword and Flame Emperors are leading the charge with. Oh God, it's them. Admin number 2, even without Maple there, her guild is still causing trouble. After the realization, this devolved into confused shouting among themselves as they are trying to figure out the goal here. This was when they noticed they were carving a path towards the portal. Do these people have a death wish? They all thought unable to do anything but pray to their monster's army for success. The group of Maple's guild and the elite heads from the other two were steadily making progress on their way to the portal. Slashing, smashing, and blasting away with magic any monsters on either side, with Chrome and Pain, who was using a shield for the first time in a long time, defending them all. However, the further they got to the portal, the more they were getting surrounded till they reached the point where they had to make a mad dash past the monsters. Sally carried Mai while me carried Yui, both slowing down slightly so the rest of the portal group could keep up with them. However, just as they almost reached it, Mi was unable to dodge an icicle attack, so she tossed Yui to Sally to catch. Fortunately, the triple-layered barrier from Francesca kept me alive. As she then used her fire spell, she shot herself like a flaming rocket towards Pain. Chrome blocked a hit about to hit Sally, who was too busy catching Yui. As the four were about to fall through the portal, Dread used his Godspeed skill to take his to them, throwing her to them. "Pass them here," Chrome said, holding his arms open to catch the twins so Sally could catch his. "Don't drop them," Sally responded, throwing the twins to him, catching is just in time. With that, Chrome, Yui, and Mai went through the portal together, with Iz and Sally going as a separate pair. Pain and me quickly followed, as Pain was still carrying holding on to me, with her using her fire spells once again to boost them to the gate. One they went through, the others accepted death and were wiped out, with one last thought going through all their minds. "Come back safely with Maple, we will be waiting." They thought soon after had to deal with the grieving relatives, angry bosses of the team who went through the portal. Hokkaido, Chrome, Yui, and Mai, third-person POV, their group had woken up in the middle of what looked like to be a cliff facing the ocean with trees behind them. However, the first to awaken was Chrome, who realized all three were rather in a natural state, to say the least. Wishing had his unique series armor from the game, he felt a surge of energy and his body get stronger. Looking down, he saw that he was dressed in his full armor, minus underwear, which made it rather uncomfortable. After a few minutes of panicking and the twins not waking up, someone came by, an old man and his wife. As they started calling him a villain and saying they were gonna call the heroes to take care of him, he bowed, his forehead slamming into the ground, being them to hear him out. Second thing to happen was thankfully them hearing him out. He took off his cape while they used the picnic blanket they had with them to cover the two girls. Deciding to talk on the way back to their house, he tried to explain how his armor was a unique thing the twins did not have and how he suddenly woke up there. They smiled at him. They started saying how fortunate he was to have such a unique quirk and what the twins inherited from their parents. Thinking about what they meant by quirk, and they showed theirs, he went with what he assumed would be theirs. He told them they had super strength, but he did not know their limit yet. Also, he decided to roll with the sibling thing to make sure they were not separated. After a bit more time, the girls woke up and the couple gave them some of their old clothes to wear, telling them to relax before dinner, letting them stay the night. Chrome told the twins what had occurred while they were asleep and what he had found out about this new world so far. Deciding the easiest way to find Maple while also using their quirks would be for them to become heroes. The backstory they all agreed on was that Chrome was training to be a hero, as he needed to reach a high enough rank to be able to help their friend. Fortunately for the twins, he was a city worker in Japan, and seeing a few unfilled government forms for various things, he knew he could make a fake family identity for them. Ironically, it was his job to check for fake or incorrect documents at his local government branch where he lived back home. As for the twins' quirks, well, they found out quickly he was right, as the two accidentally crushed the stone mugs they were drinking from to literal dust when they momentarily freaked out. When the couple returned, he first apologized to the couple for the mugs and gave them the backstory. They offered to let him and the twins help them with their farm and housework while they stayed here till the next hero license exam. While training, they found info about Maple, deciding they would all get their hero licenses so they could get closer to Mirko and Yui, hoping to sneak her away. With the Hero Public Safety Commission, or HPSC for short, apparently gunning for her as well as Yui, they decided the best way to get her back was to improve their standing in society. This would also allow them to access more information and hopefully find a way back home. During their time helping the couple and training, Chrome taught the twins hand-to-hand combat he learned from the countless games he played. There was a minor boar problem, as some rich idiot who moved here had tried to import some boars to raise for meat, but they got loose. As a result, they ended up breeding and had become a problem, so Chrome, who now went by Kuromu Tate, led a group of young men into the woods as the heroes refused to help, saying this was a job for animal control. Animal control said this was beyond them and to get the heroes to help them. Kuromu meant chromium and Tate meant shield. He felt his and the twins' last name being Shield only felt appropriate as they came here to save and protect Maple. Though everyone called him Chrome as a nickname, as for using his quirk, the community got together to sign a petition to get him a temporary license to use his quirk for the problem. Seeing that both the heroes and the animal control people said this was either below them or too dangerous, the city office relented quickly. So long as they did not tell the press, the two groups refused to help. As a result of hunting the wild boars, everyone agreed to let a local artisan to use their thick hides to make lightweight armor for his two sisters. This was because most people were rooting for these three to pass the hero exam. Though despite being shocked at hearing the two young girls wanted to take it alongside their brother, after finding out they could lift a little over 3 times as much as Death Arms, they supported them. Mustafa, Sally and Iz, third-person POV. They had woken up slowly in what appeared to be an old out-of-use factory, with Sally being the first to awaken to see Iz beside her. However, it swiftly dawned onto her how they were both currently without clothes, letting out a squeak as she covered herself up, looking around them. This noise she had made woke up the crafter, who also panicked slightly, looking around to see if they were alone. It looks like anyone who was not holding each other were transported to different parts of wherever here is. Iz said, slightly less red-faced than she was before. If so, then that means the twins are with Chrome, so those two should be fine with him watching over them. Sally relaxing a little now as she could not feel the presence of anyone nearby. The two girls began looking around the place to try and find clothes, however they only found scraps of cloth from old banners. If only I had my alchemy skill right now, I could make a knee-length dress from all this cloth. Iz thought wishfully, looking at what was in her hand. Then as she closed her eyes there was a burst of light. When she opened them she saw the dress she imagined. Sally, get over here and see this. Iz called out to her friend to show her the dress she made. After some experiment with the cloth Sally got, along with a few body pillows of a fat guy in a yellow hero-like jumpsuit they found. Iz had managed to make them both clothes, along with underwear and boots using leather and other materials they found in the building. To be on the safe side, Iz made Sally 2 knives and herself a pair as well, with knife holders of course that they hid under their clothes. Iz was wearing a blue and white sleeveless dress that went down to her knees, and a pair of yellow gloves. Sally had a white t-shirt, a light blue skirt, and white knee socks. Both girls had matching leather boots. Sally, thinking the graffiti she saw here was awful and that Iz needs to be washed away. Then before she noticed, a water ball spell appeared from her hand, destroying the wall in an instant. After some testing they determined that Iz was able to alter anything non-living at a molecular level, while Sally could draw in the water from the surrounding air and control it. With their abilities discovered to satisfactory degree, they began exploring the city to gather information, so as they both knew they needed to first know how this world worked to find Maple. After going to a local library they discovered some interesting things about this world's history. The first thing they found out was around 200 years a thing known as quirks had appeared. It was basically a unique superpower. About 80% of the human race had one. Those who did not were known as quirkless. They were apparently discriminated against as relics of humanity's past. In this society, being a superhero was government job. As such you needed a hero licenses or a subsequent quirk license to use your quirk in public. Since everyone had powers like them, this meant they would not stand out as much if they accidentally used their powers in public. Then they moved on to recent incidents and they found her. Maple had apparently gone berserk as soon as she entered this world in her demon form. As always, Maple caused plenty of chaos wherever she went. After finding out that a school known as UA had supported the adoption, there was however another party. The Hero Public Safety Commission, or HPSC for short, was trying to sink their teeth into Maple and use her. This made the two girls upset, with Sally being incredibly furious. However, as she was about to suggest they storm Mirko home for Maple, she realized two things and told us these ideas somewhere more private. First is that no one would believe them if they said they were from a different world, and Maple probably figured this out as well. If they tried to tell the truth, they would either be told they were crazy and get locked up in an insane asylum or captured to be used as tools as well. The second thing was they also needed to find a way home first, thinking that the odds were high a teleportation quirk somehow linked their worlds, then another could get them back. So their first business was to find someone with such a quirk. However, considering how valuable such a quirk is viewed as, they will be in either two groups for sure. Heroes or villains. Deciding not wanting to risk becoming a tool for the Japanese government of this world, they opted for the second group. Meaning they would need to join a group of villains with one such user and taking it over by killing the leader. Is at first objected, but after being reminded they agreed to do whatever it took to get Maple back safely. Is gave in and said they would avoid killing anyone who they did not need to or were innocent people. It would be debated later how they were going to deal with any UA students if they had to fight them to get Maple. With the answer end up being knock them out, but only kill if in a life or death fight against situation. As much as Is hated the idea of actually killing someone, she knew how life-threatening the danger was and that they would be faced with a fair amount of enemies over here. Realistically, she knew that unlike the video game, if they died here, they would most likely remain dead. And there was no way in hell she had any intention of doing nothing if someone tried to kill her for trying to save her friend.